Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It's Wednesday night, and you all know the drill now. That means it is match preview showtime, and it's another tough one for Mark Bonner's Gillingham this weekend as we take on an in-form MK Dons who've had a bit of a rest in recent weeks because of a couple of postponements, but they are absolutely flying. And I'm pleased to say I'm joined once again by a friend of the channel, Jonathan Harries, who is a massive MK Dons fan. We'll put his details in the description, as always, at the bottom of this video. So go and give him a follow on X for everything MK Dons during, before and after the game. Jonathan, welcome back to the channel, mate. Good to speak to you. It's fair to say that the MK Dons are in a rich vein of form at the moment.
Yeah, well, thanks again for inviting me on again, Matt. Pleasure as always. And yeah, it's pretty good to be an MK Dons fan so far. Bit of a whirlwind win season so far with Pete Winkleman selling the club the day before Bradford, and then letting Mike Williamson go to Carlisle. And it's just seems to have all landed on our lap now. So yeah, really enjoying being a fan at the minute.
Yeah, and if we look at your recent form, it's it's absolutely perfect in terms of the last six. There is no blemish at all, Gills fans. If you was not looking forward to Saturday beforehand, then you might want to turn this down. Morecambe 3-1, Accrington 2-1, Grimsby 3-1, Swindon 3-1, Cheltenham 3-2, and most recently Chesterfield dispatched by 3-0. 18 points from 18, currently sits 7th with 30 points from just 17 games. There is a couple of games in hand there as well for Scott Lindsey's men. Gills, after a horrific run through October that went into November, it's slightly better in recent weeks, and it's 7 points from the last 18, and them 7 points have come against Swindon by the way of a draw and 1-0 victories against Port Vale and Salford. But in amongst that, there's been some poor defeats against Newport, Harrogate and Bromley. I want to ask you about Mike Williamson, Jonathan, because at the beginning of the season, I did my season predictions, and I had you first. I thought Mike Williamson was a perfect fit in terms of the way he played the game at Gateshead, and he got them set up. So it looked like everything was set. That the recruitment, we said, was really good. I think most people who follow League Two said you had comfortably the best squad in the division. But for one reason, it didn't work. Do you think, looking back now, that maybe the playoff capitulation had a bigger impact on him and the squad than maybe you first thought, and ultimately that led to what was a really poor start to the season?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Matt. I mean, losing 8-1 on aggregate to Crawley, which ironically was Scott Lindsey's club at the time, it affected everyone, affected the fans. It obviously affected Williamson more than he cared to admit. And even though the recruitment on paper looked really good, we looked to strengthen in pretty much every single area, possibly bar striker. And I personally think it was a case of he didn't want to go too gun ho. He just wanted like the 1-0 wins and keep it tight. And it obviously didn't work out. And then the opportunity to go up to Carlisle back home sort of came, and he took it. I believe he was travelling all the way from Gateshead to Milton Keynes quite a bit during the week as well. So that was probably best for everyone that he left. And yeah, we see 2 days later we get Scott Lindsey, and they say the rest is history. So yeah, I think you're right. The playoff, I think, had a massive effect on everyone at the club.
Then, like you say, you couple that with the fact that he's a long way from home and he's having to live probably out of a suitcase. It does affect us, doesn't it? And I think that's something that we forget as football fans, that these players and managers are human beings like us at the rest of the day. And if you're that far away from home and things aren't great in your working life, then you're not going to be as happy as you want to be. So it's probably the best all round, wasn't it? He gets closer to home. Carlisle needed a manager. You probably didn't have to make an awkward decision, which may have had to come if he'd continued. And yeah, 25th of September, you appointed Scott Lindsey, and since then in the league, it's played 10, won 7, drawn 1, drawn 2, lost 1, scored a ridiculous 24, and conceded just the 10. Only one blank in that time, I think, was a home defeat to Port Vale, who are a good side at the level. But weirdly, which I didn't realise, despite only conceding 10 in 10, you've only kept one clean sheet in that time. So it seems to be that you're the team to go to if you want to have a bet and do both teams to score. But we know how good Scott Lindsey was at Crawley, and everyone said he was punching well above his weight. But even off the back of that, you must be over the moon with the start that he's made. 2.4 points per game over his first 10 is phenomenal stuff.
It is. It's beggars belief how much he's changed the mindset and the confidence of the squad, and not only the confidence of the squad. We've got an aggression back with us. We played Accrington was one of his first, actually one of his first home games, and they were you know what Accrington are like, rough and tumble, and they like to be physical. And it was strange to see us actually match Accrington physically, because we tend to struggle against sides that are quite physical and quite sort of, dare I say, direct. And yeah, it seems like maybe this round of fixtures that we've had, we've not, bar Port Vale, we've not really sort of had, I suppose you could say Grimsby are a side that we've had that up there, and but we've not really in this run had a side that's up there. So I think Saturday will be a good test. I've always rated Bonner as a manager, and yeah, it's just with Lindsay, I think it's just the fact that he's come in and within 2 weeks he was saying we're the best side in League Two. He went all Ian Evatt straight away, best side in League Two, and then 2 weeks later Joe Tomlinson came out and said we're the best side in League One and League Two, and you're like, wow, he's basically given the players a shot in the arm, saying, look, this squad's quality. You guys go out there and prove yourself, and it seems to have worked.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, proof's always in the pudding, and to be going along at that rate is absolutely ridiculous. I slightly disagree that you've not played anyone who's up there. I mean, you dismantled Chesterfield, albeit they had 10 men for 70 minutes, but you still got to go and beat them. And you know, Port Vale was the blip, but Grimsby are a decent enough side at the level as well. They've been playing well, so I think you've played some teams that are up there. I think the issue with Gillingham at the moment is it depends which version of us turns up. So if we turn up there and play to our best, then it'll be a competitive game. If we turn up and play like we have for the majority of the last 6 weeks or so, then it's 3 points, 7K Dons. I'm not going to pretend anything else. Talking about us, I have to quickly touch on him. One ex-player is obviously Jack Tucker, and I think last time we spoke, you said I think he was confident that the Mike Williamson appointment was one that was going to suit Jack. It was going to be a more possession-based manager, whereas we know Graham Alexander didn't work. He's very direct, so I think his defenders, he just wants to defend, it's fair to say. But it's still not really working out for Jack, looking at things at the moment. He's been on the bench, he's not playing a lot. Is it fair to say that, I know he's still young, especially for a centre-half, but are we approaching the time now where it might be Jack Tucker's time at MK Dons is potentially coming to an end? Just for his own well-being, because he wants to go and play football matches, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, when Lindsay first came in, we had a bit of a defensive injury crisis, and we had, I think, Lawrence Maguire, Sam Sherrin, and Nico Lawrence all out at the same time, and Jack was actually getting some game time. And the first 2 or 3 games, I'd say Tucker was brilliant, and it was probably the best he'd played. And then his mistake led to the Port Vale goal when they beat us. And Scott Lindsey came out straight after that game, without saying it was Jack Tucker's fault. He said, I didn't teach that pass that led to the turnover of possession and the goal. So he's basically throwing Jack under the bus, essentially saying, well, it's his fault we've lost. And we basically haven't seen him in the squad. At first I thought maybe he's picked up a little niggle, but we've still had no Sam Sherrin in that time, and he's still not getting on the bench. Got Dean Loonson still getting on the bench ahead of him. And you sort of think, is Lindsay maybe thinking in January, right, sorry, Jack, you're a good player, but what we've got is strong enough as it is, or we can go out and get stronger. And it's, as I said, it's probably not quite worked out for the way Jack wanted when he moved from Gillingham, and maybe a move back home might be on the cards if you need a defender.
I'm sure that conversation will come up if he is made available, but it's not one for me to say. One player that it's fair to say has been very good though, and he only had joined sort of 6-7 weeks ago, is Scott Hogan. Now, this is a player that's come out of the Championship, hadn't played a game, if I'm correct, since April, before joining you guys in the middle of October. Since then, he's played 7 games in the league. I think 6 of them have been starts. He's contributed 3 goals and assists already. I mean, too good for the level. Gets bandied about a lot, but I'd imagine Scott Hogan may fall into that category because he's played at some decent sides. 2 levels up from where we currently are at the moment. Again, similar to the Scott Lindsey impact, you must be over the moon with Scott's impact, because to have not played a competitive football match for about 6 months and then to hit the ground running as he has must be a real shot in the arm and a real boost.
It really is. I mean, that was the first bit of business Lindsay did. He went into the free agent market, and I didn't even realise Hogan was a free agent until we signed him. And he's worked with him at Tamworth when he was younger, and he says that he's he's like 33 or something, but he
32
runs
or
about like
33, yeah.
23-year-old or something, and he doesn't stop running. He hustles, he carries. He's a slightly older Max Dean without the winding up of the opposition fans, opposition players sort of thing. Is probably the best way I can describe him. He seems to have built up a great relationship with Mr. Alex Gilby. Obviously, Gillingham fans will know he scored a couple of goals against you. Got a real good link with Ellis Harrison when Ellis comes off the bench as well. Him and Harrison just like that basically, and he's such a hard worker. He gets in the right positions. He actually scored the goal after 12 seconds against Chesterfield, right from kickoff. Laid the ball back and was in the right place to finish off the move. And yeah, it's just great to have a striker like that, and especially when you've got Callum Hendry and Ellis Harrison as backup, you think that's pretty decent for the level.
Yeah, it's fair to say there's plenty of options there, and I think you've still got Jonathan Lecco on your books as well, haven't you? Who's obviously out of favour, and we've spoken about him before. But if he's the one that's not getting anywhere near the squad, let alone the starting 11, then you're in a fairly healthy place. Like you say, Hogan, Gilby, Hendry, Stephen Wern, there's Harrison. There's plenty of options in that forward area, and it's quite a nice blend as well, isn't it? You've got Hendry 27, and then Werner only 23, but Harrison, Gilby, and now Hogan providing that experience and that leadership that you need. So yeah, there's going to be plenty of players that we need to be aware of on Saturday afternoon, and it's certainly a game we're going to have to be our best at. One more individual I just want to talk about is a player that Scott Lindsey obviously knows really well, and that's Liam Kelly. Absolutely superb for Crawley Town last season under Scott, and was instrumental in their playoff run. I think scored in the final as well against Crewe. I was having a look at his ratings because he wasn't playing all the time before Scott came in. Obviously, Scott knows him well, so you go to those that are tried and trusted. But average rating under Scott Lindsey in the league is 7.11, but in the last 6, that's jumped up to 7.30. So it's clear, certainly looking at match ratings and overall performance without digging a little bit deeper, that Liam Kelly's starting to have a real impact in the middle of the park again, like he did for Scott Lindsey's Crawley last season. Just how good is he, and how pivotal will he be for the rest of the season?
I think Liam Kelly is just the heartbeat of the MK Dons side. He picked up an injury just before Lindsay. It was either just before or just as Scott Lindsey came in. I think it was a hamstring injury he picked up, so he missed a couple of games due to that. Luckily, we had depth in Tom Carroll, Connor Lemonade Evans, Kane Thompson Summers as well, and they did a job until Liam was back. And he didn't get in the side straight away when he was back from injury. He had to work for it. And the Cheltenham game especially, Cheltenham were 2-1 up at half time. And Lindsay said we need to get control of the midfield. And what better person to do that than Liam Kelly? And him and Hendry in that second half just absolutely dominated and bullied that Cheltenham side, and we got the result. But what I like about Liam Kelly is he's always thinking forward. Every single pass is forward, and he's got a great relationship with Aaron Nemain on the right-hand side. Obviously, Nemain's top assist in the EFL, I believe, with 7 assists. So that could be a good battle down your left with Max Clark as well, and certainly one to watch out for. And yeah, he just pops up everywhere. He can get the ball off the defence. He can be out on the right and ping a pass, and it's just really nice to see a player. And he cares. If we're not playing well, him and Gilby are the ones that are saying, "Come on, boys, step it up, step it up." And it's just nice to have players like that on the pitch that really want us to win. Really.
Yeah, it sounds like natural leaders all over the park, which is something that's been levelled at us for not having enough of in recent weeks, certainly since the form took a nosedive. So again, it's going to be another battle, and I didn't realise Aaron Nemain's figures were that good. It says 7 assists on the app that I use from 17 league games, and this is a bloke that was playing second fiddle to Jody Jones for the last couple of seasons. So you just realise what a good player he is in his own right. So another one to keep an eye on. Like you say, if it's Max Clark that side, he's going to have to be at his absolute best, it looks like. I want to ask you about Gills, Jonathan, before we look at what the potential teams would be, because we had a great start. I mean, in terms of the starts, it was polar opposites. You were awful by all accounts, and we were fairly decent. Won 6 of our first 8 games. We were top at the end of September after beating Barrow. And then it's been slim pickings ever since. There's been question marks about mentality. There's been question marks over Mark Bonner and his team selections and substitutions. We've started to see a little bit of an upturn in recent weeks with wins against Port Vale and and most recently Salford. But the performances are still patchy. I don't know how much or how little you've seen of us aside from what you see that and you repost, which I really appreciate. So thank you for that. But what have you made of Gills so far this season as we approach the festive period?
I just feel it just sounds like you've had a lot of injuries, and when one's come back, another two have been injured, and then when another one's come back, another two have been injured. And I looked at your squad at the start of the season, and I thought your squad would be challenging for the automatics. I really liked that he signed Elliot Nevitt. Jack Nolan was another one that you got as well that I was really excited about. Aaron Rowe as well. I'm not sure how much game time he's getting. Doesn't seem to be getting much game time. Am I right in saying Armani Little's had an injury as well? He seems to have been your player of the season so far.
Little's probably been our best player. He's had 2 hamstring injuries, so he's touch and go for the weekend. Aaron Rowe's not played since the end of August. He tore his hamstring. Elliot Nevitt's been out twice. He missed most of pre-season. He's only scored twice. Jack Nolan's been honestly so underwhelming. Like for his numbers last season, we were really excited. We thought this is what we need. Aaron Rowe pace one side, Jack Nolan, bit of trickery, direct running, goals and assists the other, and it's just not worked. I think he peaked opening day of the season when he scored a belter against Carlisle. I mean, there's assists in there, but they're like set plays, corners and free kicks. So, but in terms of open play, he's been a massive disappointment, Jack. And I think he'd probably be, man enough to say that he's not hit the heights so far. But it's a long old season, and we've still got the Bradley Dack conundrum. He made his first appearance for about 2.5 months, came on for the last 3 minutes against Salford at the weekend. Yeah, so if we can get everyone fit, then we've got a squad as good as most in the division, but it's not been the case. But it's also up to Mark Bonner and the players for number one, for Mark to get the best out of them, and number two, for these players to show more consistently that they're a good side and not just in fits and starts.
Yeah. I honestly think if you can get your key players back fit and firing, you'll definitely be playoffs. I said minimum playoffs for Gillingham at the start of the season. I don't think the league's as one-sided as it was last year with your Wrexhams and your Mansfields and your Stockports. I think it's such an open league, and all it takes, as you see with MK Dons, all it takes is a run, and you just shoot right up there. And it's about consistency, and anyone can beat anyone in League Two. And that's why I'm sort of a bit nervous about Saturday, to be honest.
Yeah, it is, and that's probably our biggest frustration, because we've played. There's been 3 occasions where we've played the team that's been top: Notts County, Port Vale and Barrow, and we beat them all without conceding. But then we've been and chucked away leads at home to Accrington, at home to Harrogate. We went to Bradford and took the lead and lost. I don't think we've earned a point if we've gone behind in a game at any stage, which is a massive concern, because it's something that's been hindering us for far too long. So if you get the first one Saturday, I'm not saying it's game over, but then it's going to be very hard for us, and that's when the questions about mentality can't come to the fore again. I'm guessing there's not much need for you to change it in terms of 11. I'm not going to tell you to do me a full team or ask for anything like that, Jonathan. But the team's pretty much picking itself at the moment, isn't it? Aside from any injuries that may have been picked up this week.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing that I'm not so sure on is whether, because Joe Tomlinson's missed the last 2 games with a heel injury, so he might come back in for Joe Pritchard, but the way Pritchard played against Chesterfield, I think that would be a tad unfair. I think it'll probably be the same lineup against Cheltenham, that plays against you. I imagine, which will be quite good to have a bit of continuity. And it's really good.
Yeah, must be great at the moment. It'd be nice to see us go on a run like that, but I'm not sure at the moment. In terms of us, I think the only doubt, unless again we're talking about injuries in training this week, Joe Bode I think is going to be ruled out. He started last week, but had to go off with a quite severe head injury, so there's going to be a load of concussion protocols that he might have to pass. So I'm not sure if he's going to be fit, because I think it's 7 to 10 days. So if he doesn't play, I think I'd make one change. I'd bring in a centre half and match you up to a degree. Go back 3, play wing backs to match up, and then obviously it's battle of the middle of the park and the forward players. But it's going to be a tough game. I know that. The final question, Jonathan. You've been on plenty of time. Score prediction.
I'd probably say 3-1. I can see us having another fast start after having another weekend off, another week training under Scott Lindsey. I can see us dominating the ball. I think you'll be happy for us to dominate the ball. and hit us on the counter. I can see you scoring because as I said, last week's our first clean sheet for a while, but it would be nice to keep a second one. But yeah, I'm going 3-1, and I'm going Scott Hogan, Alex Gilby, and Callum Hendry to come off the bench and score.
I don't like doing it, but I'm backing you to win as well. 2-1 to MK Dons. Again, the same sort of reasons. You score plenty, but you give teams chances. So I think we'll get one. Are we good enough to get 2 away from home? I'm not sure. So I don't think we will. I'm not sure we've done it all season. Yeah, I just think you'll have too much firepower for us. Like I say, we've got to see a big upturn in performance, even from the win against Salford City last Saturday. And I'm not sure at the moment we're in good enough form to be able to do that. So if you offer me a point now, I'll take it and run. Obviously, I'm going to go there and hope that we can get something, but it is a little bit more in hope than expectation at the moment. And yeah, I fancy, especially 6 on the bounce and absolutely flying is going to be really, really tough. But like you said, it's a funny old league. So fingers crossed that something funny does happen and we can get something. Jonathan, it's always a pleasure, mate. I really appreciate you coming on, especially as you're at work this evening. So thank you for that. Gills fans and MK Dons fans, if you are watching at this point, then thank you. As I always say, please keep hitting that like button and please continue to press subscribe because it is all free to do so and it helps me out no end. As I say, Jonathan's details are in the description at the bottom of this video. So please go and check him out. We'll be there, myself, Ava and Nick, for a match day live at Stadium MK at the weekend. So come and say hello if you want to come and give us your score predictions beforehand. But yeah, until then, hope you enjoy the rest of your week. And most importantly, up the Gills.